For our keynote address, we have with us Mr. Dinesh Tyagi, CEO, CSC E-Governance Services India Limited. The keynote will be followed by a panel discussion being moderated by Mr. Joy Bandekar, founding partner of Brand.com. And now welcoming our panelists for this session, we have with us Ms. Neeru Sharma, co-founder and director, Infibeam Avenues, and Ms. Yosha Gupta, founder, Memoraki. I would now request Mr. Bandekar to kindly welcome Mr. Tyagi to give his keynote speech. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to the distinguished panel here of Mr. Dinesh Tyagi, Neeru Sharma, and Yosha Gupta. And I would now request Mr. Tyagi to give his keynote speech.
Thank you very much. Thank you. First, let me thank IMI for inviting me and share some of the thoughts which we have regarding the topic assigned to us. And also the panelists, I think, who are with this group. Thank you, all of them, and also the participants who are joining and listening to this address. Digital distribution for masses is a very apt topic today because of largely because circumstances in which we are. Corona has actually not only thrown challenges, but also created opportunities, a large number of opportunities for us to try and relook the way we deliver services, both in goods and also services. And this has actually happened in real time, in real formwork, and therefore there's a lot of churning happening around in designing frameworks, in new startups coming up, new thought process being brought into in enabling citizens to access services in a circumstantial manner in which the corona is there. So the real value of corona is only to empower community because their communities are getting empowered in the process that they don't have to do anything. I remember an example when I was talking to students in Delhi University and I asked them how many of you have gone to a government office. About 90% raised their hands. And I again asked them, how many of you like to go second time to a government office? They all shouted, no, sir. But that is the perception. That is the ambition and aspiration of young generation of India. They do not want to visit to a government office. And since they have also seen this happening around, in goods, in any case, it's happening around, you get something delivered to your home, what called cash on delivery. So they were asking, why can't there be cash on delivery for services? Why can't you get my ration card, my birth certificate, my residence certificate, my income certificate, my caste certificate delivered to my home? Why should you ask me to go to your office and do that part? That's a basic necessity. Technology exists, framework exists, experience exists. We need to change mindset of those who are delivering the service in order to enable and empower. A lot of work has happened. Some of the advantage of what has happened in the new era is largely the GEM treaty. I think 40 crore people having Jan Dhan account, large number, and 130 crores have Aadhaar, and almost everyone in this country, every family has a mobile phone. Almost everyone has a mobile phone. Such a fantastic framework will not exist anytime or anywhere, which will try and help us in trying designing product which can do what is the topic of today is digital distribution for masses. Digital distribution of masses can actually be accessed through the existing format in which we have presently being done that. Some of the concerns, of course, some of the challenges do exist. One, of course, the infrastructure part, the availability of internet, which is the key and which is the key for enabling us to design anything for distribution for masses, digital distribution of masses is one factor. Fortunately, we have, of course, now on the right path in the sense that Prime Minister on 15th August announced that the BharatNet, the optical fiber will be taken to all villages. Earlier, it was only up to 250,000 panchayat. Now we'll get to 6 lakh villages in 1,000 days. So 1,000 days are very critical for us for enabling the access of internet to every citizen in the country. That will get framework at least will be put in place. There will be some teething issues here and there, but it'll get sorted out. At least you have the basic foundation laid for enabling a good quality internet access to every citizen in this country. That is the foundation. Once that is done, what do we need? We need people to learn to use it, internet. Second part is that how do I enable people to use this, what we created infrastructure? I think the other program of the government of India is the Prime Minister Gramin Digital Saksharta Abhiyan, which is to create digital literacy for 6 crore people, 60 million people. About 30 million has already been trained. The objective was to do one in every family, train in basic understanding of what is the digital, what are digital tools and technologies, and how to use digital tools and technologies for empowering and enabling and simplifying his life. That is the framework in its design. So this digital literacy once gets completed, so you will get digital literacy, you will get access to internet. Now the third aspect is design frameworks to cater to the needs of these masses, both on products and services. Product, so we have already know, a lot of work has been done on products. I think the product delivery is being done by large, both national and international company in India. What is still left is the one segment of rural India who still is not able to access these products for some reason. The reason may be their ability because of delivering in that logistic issues. There are also other issues of their existing framework and infrastructure supporting delivery to every nook and corner of this country. The country is very vast and huge. That challenge. So somebody has to build some framework dealing with the logistic for rural India in trying enabling the product to be delivered in that fashion. I will share some of them what we have done to address this, but I think that area still continues to be a large area of this country in rural India is not able to access. Urban areas do access products through an online mechanism. They get discount, they get sales, all that part of them, which is hitherto not available to rural customers. That is one part of what need to be also done. These services I did mention that if you can do cash on delivery for services, that can be a phenomenal change in the life of people. They will actually appreciate what is done. The objective continues to be the same because Honorable Prime Minister once said from the Red Fort Act, I want to give you everything what government delivered in your home, in your hand. Hand means mobile, that everything can be accessed through that. Umang is a very right application design and app design in that format. And Umang has more than about 2,000 services now accessible. But you can access and do that part of them. The delivery is still part of the challenge. But I think over a period of time, you're working out, creating a mobile app which will do. Will that serve the purpose? I'm not very sure. But I think what is required, because not only the access to individuals, but you will need an assisted format. What is the common service center? An assisted format which help people, which also the people build confidence. Because in urban areas also a lot of people use assisted format. They don't do. I know about large number of people who don't do railway ticket to IRCTC, but we'll ask somebody to do for them. And did that part of them, or they won't do a passport, but they'll get somebody else to do a passport. All this, though the framework exists, the mindset of people to build confidence and their ability still get into assisted format. That's why the Common Service Center. A lot of people ask us when we started Common Service Center that what will happen when mobile and everything is on mobile. We're not worried about it. We know about our culture, we know about our system, and we just assisted format will have a significant value even in those circumstances where everything is given a mobile, because people will build confidence on that. And of course, assisted format has big advantages. This assisted format also creates a lot of local employment potential. Today, we have about 4 lakh common service centers, which create 1.2 million people jobs. Around that number of people are employed. We are now also doing and helping BharatNet to be last mile of BharatNet to be done through Common Service Center, because you need somebody to handle, support, deliver internet, and try and create a framework and do that part of them. Also, the maintenance of fiber. We are now working out and training people in villages, and you'll be amazed that these people who may not have studied in school are fantastic. They're actually the ability to do. They can even do a fiber maintenance. They can actually maintain a fiber. When we initially started, people laughed, saying it, "Oh no, but you don't have engineer." I don't need an engineer to do a fiber maintenance, because at the end of the day, he does that part of the work. We just given the instrument them, we get some basic training to them, and do fantastic job in maintenance of that part of the work. So if we can, 6 lakhs villages will have 6 lakhs people, at least 600,000 people who will do maintenance for fiber and operation of last mile of BharatNet. What a job creation, what an employment potential it generate for rural India. And that is what we require. CSC is doing in that part, and CSC trying helping people to try necessary partnership being built in order to skilling in that direction. So we do that part of the work. I think 4 communities who need the delivery of services. Let's take from that perspective. One, of course, is the students who are in rural India. Let's also accept the fact that a good teacher will not go to rural school. It's impossible. You design anything, you can give whatever money you want to incentivize them. A good teacher will not stay for a long time in a rural school. What do we do? The only way to try and address that concern, that good quality education to everybody, will come through technology. Use technology and use that. And that's what we are doing it. So one of the things we always say, the foundation of CSC is education. And that is the foundation principles. You don't deal anything with the government, but I think citizens, whether they go to school, there are a large number of women who are not allowed to go to a nearby school or a college for some reason. What do? They want to study. So can we create a framework? We had actually done the same thing. We are enabling students who are weak, who fail, who are not able to go to school or who are not allowed to go to school. So this segment is not taken care of by the traditional schooling system. Only if you know about the figure that only 30% of the students go to college after class 12. Rest did not even get admission to college. What happens to them? Who takes care of them? What is the requirement for them? Can we create a system in enabling these children, either girls and boys, mainly the girls who are for various reasons have handicapped in that aspect by the societal factors or otherwise, can be supported in trying and learning. That's what we do. So we almost everything possible now available in our platform. We do higher end also. We still do CAD and programs, the artificial intelligence. We also do machine learning. We do all kind of things. I may get one candidate in a village, but I still get 4 lakh candidates. We don't run like a school, but we enable students to learn whatever they want to learn. So we create a plethora of large number of services with a lot of service providers who help us in doing education. So the objective is that everybody who want to learn, we actually started a Sanskrit class also. And we were surprised that people in US wanted to learn Sanskrit through our platform. So they want to learn Sanskrit. So we started Sanskrit, we studied Santhali in Jharkhand, a language. So anything which is required can be done digital. The only advantage is we don't do physical, we do everything digital. We enable the student to run digitally, get admission in whatever format you want to do. We do mock test for him to enable to prepare. And we also enable to get an examination done in the same format, in the same place. So he doesn't have to go anywhere. We do what we call a remote proctoring examination system. First time we introduced this exam, understanding that the girl cannot even go for exams. You can't take her to exam for a district headquarter place. You have to create some system where she can appear at the exam at the same location. And they, of course, they need a certificate. So that's what the entire framework of education is built in. And new courses are being added in our system to try and excite communities, whatever they want to learn, and depending on them. Today morning, we inaugurated, we actually first time launched what we call a CSC Olympiad. And we were, because of the COVID, we were seeing the children in villages are finding very difficult. Either the school, nothing, what to excite. So we launched this program for CSC Olympiad, first time. And we have shocked 2 lakh people, 2 lakh students appeared for the COVID, for the Olympiad exam. Various class, various exam. Of course, we awarded 100 of them today. And I was surprised that 75% of, out of the 100 who got awarded, 75% are girls. So you look at the great change which we can bring to, but this is all technology. The study is technology. We allow them to study. We also give them some mock tests to try and rehearse themselves in the same place, either in the house or the common service center, and then appear for the exams through a remote proxy examination system. But they're built in for rural environment. Education for rural masses, digital delivery can happen through assisted format in using technology. That is the one way of doing it. Second, of course, is the financial inclusion. And financial inclusion is one of our key strengths because we do believe that that's one important area. After 70 years of independence, we still have in the country only about 70,000 branches, rural branches of banks. We still have 6 lakhs villages. It will never happen the traditional way. It can happen only a non-digital way. So we use an Aadhaar-enabled payment system, AEPS, and it's amazing. See, today there are 40 crore households, actually 40 crore citizens who have been transferred money directly into their account by government various schemes, whether you're Jan Dhan account holders, or you have Ujjwala beneficiaries, or you have other beneficiaries of farmers. All these people need to withdraw the money or at least look at the balance inquiry. So we do this Aadhaar-enabled payment system and create a system actually for them. But this is an amazing world of these guys. And we were finding it difficult in some cases, saying that Aadhaar, the fingers don't work. So we gave them iris. So now they work with iris. So wherever the finger is not, we work out a solution to the problem, whatever is happening around. We don't blame saying that fingers are not there or Aadhaar is not there, but we work out a solution. So iris work wonderfully well. And some of them are patients. Some of them are old. They can't even go to a branch. They have to be actually carried to a branch by 2-3 people picking them up and going. And of course, the harassment and humiliation which happens in that place. Our village level entrepreneur goes to their house and sit there and do that part of the work to enable them to withdraw the money. Financial inclusion. We of course do insurance for all insurance companies. We do insurance for the penetration ratio is very low, but I think we started with the LIC very recently, and we have in a month, in about 15 days time, we sold about 10,000 policies. They were shocked because they never seen micro insurance for 10,000 policies being sold in about less than a month period. But this is possible. In an amazing world, you need to create. The advantage of Common Service Center is that he is digitally equipped with necessary infrastructure. He is digitally knowledgeable in order to use infrastructure, and he can deliver services. And of course, he can do advocacy for whatever programs you do. His ability to mobilize is phenomenal. He can see. I go to a village and ask people to come. More than 20 may not come. But when he asks him, 20 people come together because he belongs to the same village. And an entire framework, about 50,000 of women entrepreneurs. And women entrepreneurs, as usual, are far better because their acceptability in the community is higher. They trust them more as compared to the community trusting a man. But and of course, the sincerity is very large. Therefore, large. These women we have some spotlights, and these women for Bengal are saying that one uniqueness of CSC, it is her words, saying is that's open 24 hours. It has no time, it has no day off. That's a uniqueness about CSC. So you can walk in any time and just draw the money, which is not possible in the existing government system. So we do also national pension scheme. So we do all the 3 components of financial inclusion, and that part of them, filling the gap of a necessary infrastructure for enabling people to access basic financial services. The one missing component is, of course, the credit, because 19% of Indians still draw credit from an informal sector. They don't do a formal sector. That is the RBI's report. So therefore, this 19% is still in the hands of money lender. Can we devise something? I think there's still some work being done by RBI. The recent aggregator framework for working out is being done. Once that is put in place and you have the loan being disbursed of 5,000, 10,000 rupees on certain norms being decided, you can actually change the whole scenario of financial inclusive society. And everybody knows that financial inclusive society will lead to growth and also address issues on poverty and unemployment. That is the fact. So we are doing that part of the work. And the next, of course, is our telemedicine. We do that. We do believe the doctors will never go to a village. It is impossible. You do anything in any case. Even the paramedic will not go to a village. Why you talk about doctors? Because the village is like this, built in the environment. So what do we do? How do I try and create some support system for villagers in order to use them? The one way is, of course, fortunately with the COVID, I think is the great thing with the COVID did was it made government of India release telemedicine guidelines, which were waiting for many years. So they actually released guidelines for enabling and legalizing telemedicine consultation through the same way. So we do telemedicine now. We do telemedicine for allopathy, homeopathy, and Ayurvedic, and also Siddha for all the part of them. And give a choice to a citizen, whatever. If you want an allopathic doctor will give it to him. And then, of course, some dispensation of medicines take place through the format. There are, of course, now platforms which are dispensing medicines based on prescriptions. So you can upload a prescription and dispense the medicine. This need to be a little more advocated as compared to a traditional pharmacy route where you need a license and you also need a pharmacy, which is all bogus, which actually there's no logic. Why do you need a pharmacist license? I still can't make out. And why do you need a pharmacist to dispense the medicine? Also, I don't In any case, the pharmacist, there's somebody else dispensing the medicine. In the shop, there's no pharmacist existing. So this need to change. Once this changes, then you have to, and of course the diagnostic, some part of electronic diagnostic is being tried. We still have not been to build up a good system of electronic diagnostic. If you can do that, there are 1.2 million people who get blind every year, and 80% of the blindness comes from refractive index. Can we design something? We of course tried with one of the major international companies and try and see, can I have a small thing which can determine the refractive index problems for children in villages, and then we can provide glasses to them and help them to do it. Even some basic interventions of that nature can help in telemedicine, teleconsultation, diagnostic, and the dispensers of medicine can create a good center for medical care, for primary medical care. So this is what will happen. And the last, I just wanted to share what we have done. We recently launched a program called Grameen e-Store. This came in the COVID time, where we found that everything was closed. The villager cannot place an order because suppose you want to buy something, urban area, you still can place order, somebody can supply. But in a village, nobody can supply. So we launched this program called Grameen e-Store, where a villager becomes a shop. He becomes an electronic shop. And the customer he can download. These apps are available on Google Play Store and iOS, both. You can download them, and he can place an order, and they can then supply them using their own digital caddy. We don't call them courier boys, we call them caddy. See, our belief is we now have 140,000 of these stores now created, and we have sold about 15 lakhs of, we have taken orders of about 150 crores has been done in very short period of time. And we are shocked because some of these women were making jalebis and samosas and selling it. One chef was actually doing fish from fish farm and selling it. So there's a lot of innovations which happen. He decides what we want to sell. He decides the price that we want to sell. And of course, we're linking a large of these people in trying doing some part of the work for them. But this is all digital. There is no work. So everything is digital. The app on which the customer places order is digital. The app on which our shop runs is also digital. When he want to buy from distributor, that is also digital. So everything is digital, but the three different apps combined together into a single format. Of course, we do believe that once we do about 400,000 of them, all of them once become the Grameen e-Store, we can do quite a lot, and at least 5 cadets get jobs because they do courier services and they do advocacy program. So get 2 million people will get jobs. They may not be full-time jobs, but there's some jobs given actually to people in order to try and address those concerns. Grameen e-Store, the new discovery, happened because of COVID, and COVID actually thrown this challenge to us, and we did that work for the COVID. That's in a nutshell, Common Service Center. The idea of Common Service Center is to build a rural enterprise, operated, managed, and run by a person who lives in the same community. And we try and provide necessary skills. And of course, we use platforms, some by government, some by other service provider, in order to try and access services to be delivered. So thank you very much. And we wish if there are other service provider. Also, one of the strengths is that we are neutral. We don't stick. There's no exclusivity to anybody. If I tie up with Coca-Cola, I also can do with Pepsi. I can do all that part of the work because we don't exclusively do with anybody, because that's the strength of the entire pipeline. So thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me and sharing the views. Thank you. Joy is on. Joy,
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Tyagi. Would Niru, you would like to take on further? Or yeah.
So I think it was a lot of good insights from Dr. Tyagi, and it's all very inspiring how much of work CSCs have been able to do and touch and make an impact, a real impact on the rural India. Because the fact of the matter stays, and as he rightly touched on the 3 core pillars, one is the financial inclusion part of it. How do we make them more financially literate, and how do we take finance and banking to their disposal? The second is education, which actually makes them employable. because the employability index is one of the core indicators of how successful they are going to be and what kind of professional options are available to them in their areas. The third one, health, as is rightly touched by Dr. Tyagi as well. So if you look at the latest TRI report, so the rural internet subscribers per se, they account for more than 38% of the total internet subscribers in the country, and this number is increasing a few percentage points every year. But the internet penetration, if we look at it, in rural area is only like 33% compared to what would be at 99% in the urban part of the country. Now, having said that, there is a telephone, there is a mobile in every hand, and there is internet that they are consuming through their mobile networks. But what is lacking? The financial empowerment schemes, if I touch upon it. So we are a part of, I'm a part of CC Avenues. So Infibeam Avenues merged with CC Avenues a few years back, and since then there is a lot of financial offerings that we have been able to create which touch masses and not just limits themselves to a net banking or a credit card or a debit card kind of option. But as we look at the scale that we are able to reach in the rural sector, I think they are limited by certain very basic facilities which are not available to them. So one, I think, is massively the awareness of all these government schemes and which could be at their disposal. This could be anything called the Atal Pension Yojana or the direct benefit transfers which is available to them. And hence, all these government bodies like panchayat institutions, etc., I think they are doing a big role. CSC is doing a big role in improving their financial literacy. Earlier, one successful model had been this business correspondent model. It was highly successful in opening a lot of bank accounts. But if we look at the numbers, a substantially high number of bank accounts are still inactive. The reason is that one, there is no digital literacy. There is no access to ATMs. ATM infrastructure in the rural is very, very poor. Then fear of information as well, because when you're putting your credit card or debit card banking information on the internet, there is some bit of trust that you have to form. There has to be a lot of literacy regarding that as well, that the system is safe and secure for them to use. Other big problem we realize is that most of these banking sites or banking information would be in English. So most of these banking platforms, they're all English driven, and hence the regional language support is pretty much missing in the apps, which is the primary mode of consumption for this rural customer. The RuPay and UPI, I think they have been able to play a good role in bridging this gap. But since then, I think there is a lot still to be done. Even wallets, I think, is highly accepted as part of the rural economy, and it happens to be one of the growing indicators in terms of their usage of digital financial inclusion. Now, having touched on the financial piece, we also know that rural is mostly an agriculture-based economy. They are still dependent on a lot of labor force and natural factors. So one is that we make them more financially literate. Second, how do we make sure that they have more income at their disposal? They are able to earn more and not really dependent on the natural factors which are completely beyond their control. So in terms of this huge potential, one good thing which is also happening is a lot of startups are actually entering this space, which are agri-tech enabled. So these startups are actually giving a lot of digital government programs and helping these farmers know when to sow, how to monitor their crops, how to capture and analyze the different data points and transition in terms of crops, the crop data, the soil data, the weather data. They are making it very easy for in the apps itself to enable their decision making, and also give them facilitate the access to any kind of crop insurance or institutional credit that these guys need. A lot of startups are actually also bridging this digital gap by offering financial products and services which are very, very tailored to the rural masses. And I think this is one very big step, because more and more financial literacy would also mean that they have to come over the basic problems of life when they want to be a participate in this digital India setup. Coming to the second point, which was this education, I think the status of education, as Dr. Tyagi earlier said, is really deplorable. And why? Because the teaching methods are very archaic. There is a shortage of teachers. There is a very poor teacher to student ratio. There is teaching material which is not updated, not adequate. So I think one good thing is also happening in the digital sector where all these multimedia teaching tools are being provided to teachers and students. Smart classroom equipment like virtual classroom, the virtual digital boards, digital content, digital languages. Digitization of education is actually becoming more and more feasible because one teacher in the urban masses is able to deliver remotely across various students and various locations at the same time. So digital has really empowered a single teacher who is of a good quality in the same 1 hour slot is able to impart to a number of students. So I think it is a very I would say impactful step when we want to make them educated and employable and literate. So, owing to COVID, I think a lot of focus also went in this direction because leaving apart rural, even the urban sector moved towards the digital consumption in classrooms. So, it kind of gave a hockey stick kind of rise to all these digital classroom sessions that we are seeing these days. So, even in urban, even now, I don't think a lot of schools, the very basic schools up till class 10 or 12 are still open completely. And the reason is they are able to employ a lot of these multimedia and digital techniques which is a booming industry right now. So online education can definitely work wonders in this direction and they can help the socially marginalized community to attain their entitlements because of this equipped very basic infrastructure. Internet definitely needs to be available. The third one, which Dr. Tyagi touched, and which was this health tech. Now, if we look at the health tech, there's some very basic challenges. There's organized and the healthcare data itself is missing, so very inadequate data, very unorganized data, the quality healthcare, there is no efficient processes, there is lack of doctors because nobody wants to move there. And if we look at some statistics, I think in India the doctor to patient ratio in the allopathy sector alone it stands to like 1 to almost like a 1600 kind of a number, which is far lower than a basic minimum 1 to 1400 which is a WHO standard. Now, to visit the towns and cities, these people have to take a lot of time. The travel time is there. Hence, a lot of telemedicine startups are coming up in this direction. Now, owing to that, literacy even becomes more important because which site to consume for what kind of information and which is a reliable site is also something that they need to be continuously equipped with. So, in a nutshell, I would say the employability, if that part is served through the digital modes, I think that is going to empower them more and more to be a part of the digital sector, and they will be able to enjoy all the other benefits of a financial inclusion much more than they are doing today when they are caught up in the basics.
I would love to jump in there actually because you've literally left it at a point which is really, which leaves it very nicely for me to sort of bring up some of the things that we've been working on. And like Mr. Tyagi and Neeru have touched on some very important sectors already. But I think one of the sectors which often gets missed out, but is one of the biggest sectors for our economy, is the artisanal sector, right? The sector for artisans. Officially the numbers would be like, let's say 7 million artisans, but unofficially the numbers actually stand at like more than 200 million people who actually are involved in the artisanal economy in some shape or form, right? And the point that Neeru made about making sure there's employability and income generation opportunities, right? Like that is a very, very important point at the end of the day, because there is no financial inclusion unless there's actually income, right? Like what can they do with financial inclusion and bank accounts if they don't have income? And that's where I think we are trying to do some work, and I can shed some light on what challenges for this sector have also been. So my website and my platform Mimiraki, well, we started as a hand-painted artisanal brand where we work with tribal and folk artists across India to create beautiful products. But when COVID hit is when we realized that, it's not like anybody was buying. So we weren't being able to give enough work to the artists and artisans who worked with us. And we realized that they were really struggling because they depended either on tourism or they depended on exhibitions like, going to Surajkund Mela, going to Delhi Haat to actually retail their products, right? They have definitely been digitally excluded. Like they've not been able to take advantage of digital distribution overall as such. Maybe some of them have, but broadly, most of them haven't really been able to take advantage of digital distribution, right? So when COVID hit, they've definitely really, really struggled. And we saw the struggle for most of them, and we thought, okay, we need to try and do something, right? And that's when we thought that, okay, what is it that we can actually, if you look at the demand and supply side of the equation, there's what is it that they have that people would be interested in consuming right now, where it's not about just buying products, right? So if you think of it, there's this beautiful, tangible and intangible heritage that all of these artisans and artists have. They can actually teach their beautiful arts. They can actually teach their beautiful crafts to people across the world. And at this point of time, people are actually looking for interesting things to do, right? Like everyone's sitting at home, you actually want something which is mindful, which centers you, which makes you feel, creative. And when you do something with your hands, it actually, there's, multiple sort of, research studies around how beneficial that is overall for, your mental well-being as well. So we thought, okay, we're going to try and launch these online art workshops, traditional art workshops, where these artists, and imagine this is an artist, a Pattachitra artist sitting in Raghurajpur, logging online with his phone and teaching the art. And we've had people, thousands of people in the last year attending from, the UK, the US, India, across the world actually, right? And I live in Hong Kong, so obviously from Hong Kong as well, but we've literally had people, thousands of people attending from all across the world. We've done hundreds of art workshops in the last 8 months. And literally we have, a few hundred artists already on our platform now. And the idea is to try and get more and more of them on the platform as well. And like Mr. Tyagi mentioned, of course, the fact that the building blocks of the infrastructure are there, right? Like, thankfully, all of them have a smartphone in some shape or form. They have internet connectivity in some shape or form. Without that, it was impossible to do this, right? So these building blocks were definitely required. Then it came to sort of training them up a little bit around, how do you actually use a platform like Zoom or, any sort of, online platform where you're actually doing a video call, you're being able to teach. How should you actually teach, actually being able to talk to customers across the world as well during a workshop like that, and all of that, right? So this has been honestly a very, very big learning that, it's not just products that can be created, it's actually services which can be enabled in this way as well, where all of this heritage can be taught to people across the world. And, now the mission for our work is actually to get, each and every one of these arts and crafts online, so that people sitting anywhere can actually learn it. And India has more than 3,000 to 4,000 of these arts and, heritage arts and crafts. And like I said, more than, unofficially, more than 200 million people working in this sector. So that's one of the big sort of, sort of tipping points for us in the last 1 year, actually, that how can we, make sure that this sector, which has till now not been able to be, very digitally enabled, how can actually be digitally enabled? How can income generation opportunities be created for them? And I think now it's reaching a point where we now need to start thinking a little bit around financial inclusion and financial services as well, but which is where, we can do partnerships. For example, all of them actually need sort of, money sometimes to create products, when they need to invest in making better products. So they always need capital for that. But traditionally, it's never been easy for, artisans like that to be able to get credit easily, right? It's more sort of, they can probably get credit from within the system from some of their, buyers, but to be able to officially get credit has not really been that easy. So obviously that's something that we need to now try and think of enabling as well, while we when we sort of look at the next level of scale. So yeah, I mean, for us, I think this is one sector I wanted to highlight that, hasn't been covered a lot in the previous two speakers' discussion, which I thought would be interesting to highlight, that this is also a very, very important sector. And while a lot of people believe that this is a sunset sector, but it's actually not, because, with the world changing and, so much more attention being on sustainable products, on, handmade, on the whole made in India story, this is truly a fabulous made in India story, actually, that, this is our heritage and tradition, which can actually become very, very scalable using technology. You're mute again, Joy.
Thank you, Yasha. So I have some, what I would do is I'll just go with certain points which each of the speakers have said, and maybe they can then enlighten on how do we move forward on that. To begin with, Mr. Tyagi had suggested that logistics in rural India has to be more efficient and has to happen there, right? Now, the question that happens, Mr. Tyagi, is that for anything to work efficiently and at scale, you need volumes. And if you don't have the volumes, then the cost goes up, right? Today, China is the manufacturing, in the factory of the world, because they're manufacturing at scale, right? And hence they're able to produce it much, much cheaper. So that is one point. COD is a very expensive proposition, though it's an efficient thing, right? And India is a very, very cost-sensitive market. If you could charge something for COD at a slightly higher price, people would not buy. And if you tell them to buy at the digital instead of the COD, they may be hesitant to do that. So we'll have to sort of marry the practicality with the commerce part of it. Just like, the teachers or the doctors for that matter. If you see a lot of doctors or medical colleges have a condition that they have to stay in rural area for 2 years. But I know of many, many doctors, and I'm sure the same would be the case with the teachers. The doctors are supposed to pay a fine, and they are willing to pay a fine because the women generally don't want to go to the rural area for reasons which are obvious, right? The infrastructure, the safety, the other facilities there, right? So similarly, I think things would happen with the teachers. Now, with this thing, what CSC could do is CSC could probably teach more and more teachers to deliver the lectures online to the rural areas, and they can be recorded so that once they are probably being monitored, which otherwise they can't be, they will probably do a better job. That is one space which I think we could look at. Secondly, a suggestion maybe you'd like to explore. As Neeru said, a lot of our economy is agriculture-based, rural India-based, right? And that is predominantly dependent on agriculture. Now, they produce a lot of vegetables, fruits, and all of that. It will be very, very difficult again for the rural India to directly sell to the urban area. Whatever farm laws may have been repealed or whatever, the RTR, for whatever practical purposes, plays a role there. He acts as an aggregator, right? So if the CSC is probably able to act as an aggregator, and they probably tie up with some large e-commerce firms and say, we will coordinate with the farmers and buy the pesticide, seeds, fertilizer at scale, and they get it cheaper, and they can be given guidance on terms of what is the crop to be sown there on the basis of agroclimatic conditions, and also on the basis of the demand. I think that could be explored. I'm not sure. I'm sure that is not a mandate of CSC, but maybe some informal way you all may like to look at it. So would you want to ask that, and then I take to Neeru and Yosha, or?
Sure. First, cash on delivery. I think this notion we have to get out of our mind saying people are not willing to pay. I don't agree. I don't agree. People are today, see, if what you call free is actually not free. To go to a government office and get a service costs me 200 rupees. I'm willing to pay 50 rupees if you deliver my house. So we have to get rid of this notion that there is anything free. There is nothing free in this world. That has to be very clear. And that's why we confuse ourselves. No, government gives free, you're charging money. What charging money? You give an option to that fellow. You don't try and saying it. Also, the second option, saying it, kindly don't think that everything for good for the nation is done by government and its institutions. Even the private sector do good for the country. This notion that no private sector has to be kept outside and only government and institution can build the country, that also is wrong. That understanding is wrong. See, they also contribute. I'm sure what these two panelists are saying, they also contributing in trying economic growth and trying in empowering communities and trying helping building nation. One should not undermine the contribution of private sector in enabling that part of the work. I think we sometimes do confuse it. The second, of course, you said about logistic, that logistic in India for the last mile. See, that's what they say. If you do, what has happened is large e-commerce platforms have built their own logistic. Each one has built their own logistic arms. And that is the problematic. If you have an aggregated logistic arm, it makes sense. What I can do for A, I can also do for B, and I can do for C. Then it makes sense at the last mile. An aggregated logistic neutral to or supplying to all the e-commerce players make greater sense. And that's what the CSC is filling the gap. CSC actually is an aggregated logistic for last mile. And since they live the same place, they go and deliver to them. The second, of course, is when you are actually sending the truck on one side, you can bring goods, what she said on self-help groups, or you can bring goods back from that side. So, but that can happen by the last mile. That cannot happen by the service provider who is only looking at one part of the story of delivering services. That logistic. It is possible to design solutions, but I think many of these companies want to build their own logistic and they don't want to look at the support for logistic for aggregator logistic. But there's a need to work out rural India need aggregated logistic. Third, of course, you say teacher to be trained by CSC. I don't know. Teacher, you train any teacher, they won't stay in the village. Don't underestimate that. See, I lived in a village and I know about it. No, there's a basic principle of economics. We say that if your salary or if your income is more than the average income of the community in you live, you will move out of the community. And that is what happens. If the teacher's income is more than the community, he moves out of the community. He actually goes. He will not stay there. He will go to some urban area and stay, and half-heartedly will do job. Then he will get into some political cloud saying that my transfer, my children want to study, my transfer, all this. These are political forces. They actually created lobbies for themselves. They don't want to stay there, and they will not stay. So let's not try and do and fiddle with that part. Let's try and create an alternate available to people. We're giving a choice to them that you can do through this digital meet and also do through school if you want to do through school. Last, of course, you said farmers. I didn't mention, but I think the farmers, we do a lot of work on farmers. We actually built during the COVID time. It also happened during COVID. We do a teleconsultation also for farmers. All the KVK scientists, Krishi Vigyas Kendra scientists, are now integrated to our system. And a farmer can go to CSC and tell them whether you want advice on pest or you want something on growing on advisory on agroforestry or whatever advice he needs, he can take that. But it's done and they do write and give them. It's like telemedicine. We created tele-agriculture. We also the first one who started tele for animals. So we actually thought that animal for a farmer is as important as the children for going to school. So we actually have a teleconsultation also for animals and also the dispenser of medicine for animals. So we do look after that part. So I remember the incident of one chap who's saying his elephant has his camel in Rajasthan. He told me, sir, आपने ठीक करा दिया नहीं तो मेरे को 5,000 रुपए लगते 100 rupees में हो गया. The treatment by the doctor. But that is the amazing part of tele. Digital for masses can be done through this format in which you do. But for God's sake, don't underestimate the potential of what the private sector will bring it. What the private enterprise, rural India brings that guy, don't underestimate him. He's not bad. He's as good as any government guy who goes and delivers services in that format. So farmers, we do this. We also do dispensation for seeds and fertilizers. We actually do an aggregated format and we created for IFCO and CRIPCO together. And we do have licensing requirements, whatever we meet the requirements. So we do dispense fertilizers and seeds. We also do cattle feed distribution. We do everything what is required for farmer. So farmers advisory, there's also pension scheme for farmers, which we implement for them. We also enable them to get loan through our, because each of these guys have what is called a business facilitator. We are CSCs. We've got some private banks. Government bank को समझाना नहीं था, मुश्किल हो गया. But we have got some bank, SDFC is one bank, is saying सबको BF बना देते हैं. And we generate lead for them and they sanction loan for them. They sanction loan in less than 24 hours. There are people who have bought cars, scooters, three-wheelers, depending on their convenience. What a great thing. But all happened through technology. There's nothing physical. It is possible through technology. See, we need to change our mindset of what is happening around. Unless we change the mindset, this mass dispensation of services through digital format will not be possible. And please don't think that people are not willing to pay. I will not agree with this. I live in people are willing to pay. Today, every young fellow is willing to pay. He doesn't want to go to your office. That is the only thing. Don't ask him to come to government office. Thank you very much.
Mute.
Unmute.
Sorry. One question, Neeru here. Neeru, we were talking about ATM machines being very low in numbers in the rural areas. And that goes for two ways, right? Once you have the ATM machines, obviously the cost is high, right? Just like the credit cards. Why don't you have many people using the credit cards in the rural areas or the shops or the merchants, many of them not using? Because one, that they feel that they have to pay the charges of the banks because it has to be maintained. The credit card service provider has to do that, right? Now, both of them have to make some money. They're not into social work, right? Now, the initiative of the government of digital payments is extremely good, and the motive of not having free charges and no charges rather is also very good. But there has to be a fine balance which has to be arrived at between commercialization and a social service, right? You cannot have social commercialization. I don't think that's going to work anywhere in the world, right? So, and you can see that very clearly also in the telecom. Yeah, telecom, there was a lot of fanfare that, some service provider was providing free of cost, and why not? If someone is providing, why not? But yes, we have seen the quality of services that has degraded in India. I mean, I'm living in Goa, and Goa is supposed to be extremely high on digital connectivity. From my first floor, if I go to my ground floor, I can't hear anything. I don't get the net connectivity. And that's precisely because when you kill a lot of the players, right? And then where are you talking about basic commerce? You're then talking about socialism. So we have to draw this fine line. Yeah. And with reference to Yosha, Yosha, you made an interesting point on the credit system, right? Now, credit system in India, which I feel is extremely important, but system that has been prevalent in India. And we have also been seeing the system of loan waivers, right, over a period of time. So, of the banks and what is the what I would say local money lenders who then use the strong arm methods to recover their money. I mean, that's the only logic which I can see. So we'll have to work with digital now, and with CSC coming to the picture with Aadhaar, there could be some system where an accountability can be placed so that over a period of years, we can then have a better credit, robust credit distribution mechanism and recovery system also.
Yeah.
And lastly, one other point, if it may be of interest to you, is you said that the heritage and the local artisans, okay, this is not a sunset industry. Again, I would like to remember, eBay had acquired a site called Kijiji, which was in African language, a local market, right? And that was basically, this was somewhere in 2007. And eBay was at its prime then, right? So when they bought Kijiji, the objective was to encourage the local artisans to sell their products across the globe. But that didn't click because the volumes were smaller. It definitely provides a platform. But for the heritage or the art to sustain, it has to be first and foremost, that art has to be marketed. It has to be sustainably marketed in terms that they should get a proper price. If his input cost is going to be, say, around 2 rupees, and if he's going to sell at 2 rupees 10 paise, that's not going to encourage his other members in the family to take up that art, right? He has to see his children, he has to see his parents or relatives prosper. Only then he's willing to do that. And it is a fine balance which you have to find in ensuring that they get a very good remunerative price. You go to Kashmir, right? A lot of the art is fantastic. But then the women are so old now, and the children don't want to, or their grandchildren don't want to
It's a
take care of
problem.
their art.
Yeah, it's a problem we are grappling with. Absolutely.
Yes. So this is the other fine balance that you have to look at. Otherwise, this art is going to be nice to talk at coffee tables, for symposiums, seminars,
Yeah.
but things will not
Scale.
work. Yeah, you've seen that in the handloom mills in India, right? It's a similar case, right? So yeah, but interesting discussion here. Are there any questions?
So I guess we do not have time for questions. in another 1 minute if there are any closing remarks from any of the panelists, and then we'll have to close.
There's a line saying the ATMs are not costly. Micro ATM costs 2,000 rupees. So don't worry about it. We are putting micro ATMs across the country. Today, technology is transforming. So don't worry about it. ATM, yeah, I need a small phone and I can do an ATM transaction. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, but what happens is to maintain the ATM is a cost, and also to transfer
There
the
is no
money is a
cost.
cost.
There is no cost. There is absolutely zero. And each transaction you get 15 rupees. It's a business model. Don't worry about all that. Today, the phenomenal change is happening in the world of using technology. We're redefining the way we used to do transactions.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yusha Gupta, Dinesh Tyagi, and Niru Sharma. And thank you, IMI, for getting us all together on this platform.
Thank you. Lovely to
Thank
be here.
Thank you so much to all our speakers for being with us here today. I would also like to thank our customer experience partner Adobe, customer engagement partner Infobip, gold partners Freshwork and Tata Teleservices, silver partners Reverie Language Technologies and Pillows, bronze partners Creditwatch and InShots. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.